Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It is December 19th, approximately 9 p.m., and we wanted to talk to you about details. The devil is in the details. It's an old saying, but it's always been true, and perhaps even more true today when we talk about politics and the 2024 election. We're going to cover a little bit about that and what I'm talking about in just 1 second. But first, if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we want to welcome you. We want to thank you for being part of our audience. We do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out across the entire internet, everywhere the internet overlords will allow, to hear your voice on the issues that matter to you, that affect us all, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to speak up, even if the internet overlords don't agree, even if they try and suppress your voice, even if your leaders of your countries want to silence you. We will hear your voice, and we talk about it every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So something happened today that I thought was very interesting. It happened earlier today, approximately 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the reason why I'm talking about it now in the evening is I wanted to give a couple of the parties the opportunity to respond. We reached out and confirmed some information, so we wanted to get our ducks in a row. The details matter in everything, especially when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to an election like the 2024 presidential election. The details tell us a lot about what's going on and what we can expect. And that's why we wanted to cover this story with you today, because it's about RFK Jr. You know, RFK Jr., the former Democratic candidate that went independent to be able to run against Joe Biden and present his case, his reasoning to the American people, and he's been garnering about 22% in polling. But his campaign has its issues, and that may be an issue for him if he were to win as an administrator. Let me explain what I'm talking about. I think this is very timely because we know that right now the 2024 election is in flux. We've seen that Colorado, the Supreme Court of Colorado, has reversed a district court decision, and now suddenly the question, will President Trump appear on all ballots in all 50 states or 49 or some other lesser number? Would that affect the election and who would be voted in? And when we're having that kind of a conversation, those kind of questions, the ability of a third-party candidate may be more consequential today than ever before. You see, RFK Jr. is getting about 22% in polling from both Democrats and from Republicans, taking votes away from each of the candidates, but not enough to cause either of them to lose, nor to allow RFK Jr. to win. But what if Trump, as an example, doesn't have all 50 states? Does that mean that RFK as a third party could pick up those states? Could he gain enough votes because Trump isn't in every state to be able to win? Would he be able to get enough electoral ballots to make the difference? This is very interesting. Or would it cause Joe Biden to win in that scenario? Given that reality that this is so in flux and therefore the independent vote is so critical, we wanted to cover what happened today. You see, there's an event that's called America Fest, which is run by the Turning Point USA organization. It's very similar to what we've seen before in CPAC. Now, you may recall, we've been to CPAC several times. We've covered the events there, including in 2020 when a certain Hollywood personality decided to try and subvert that event, which we covered live for many people. But the America Fest is very similar to what we saw at CPAC. It is a collection of individuals, independents, conservatives, Republicans, and maybe even some Democrats that come together to speak about the policies affecting America going forward and how we will run our nation, how we will lead the world in terms of democracy. Now, AmericaFest ran from December 16th to December 19th, and they had a huge number of speakers at the event each day, some of them being like Charlie Kirk, Glenn Beck, Dr. Ben Carson, Rob Schneider, Tulsi Gabbard, Senator Ted Cruz was at the event today, and many, many others. It's a very influential event. And at the same time, while the event is going on, as various speakers are on the stage, you will also see that there are many vendors at the convention as well. Individuals that are there to either sell their wares, talk about their political campaigns, candidates from the local, state, and federal level, including presidential candidates. And this year, one of those presidential candidates that were reaching out to conservatives, Republicans, and independents happened to be RFK Jr. via the super PAC American Values 2024. The American Values 2024 super PAC is focused almost singularly on RFK Jr. and getting him on the ballot in all 50 states, on helping him to win if they can, and to get as many votes as possible as a third-party candidate. In fact, they say on their website they are looking to return the soul of America. That's their goal. How much that has to do with the RFK campaign is a different question altogether, or RFK's policies themselves, which tend to be moderate, leaning towards progressive, depending on the issue. We know that the PAC does support things like a path to citizenship, which many Americans do not. And we know that RFK Jr. himself believes in a more isolationist vision of America going forward. You may or you may not agree with RFK Jr. You may or may not see him as a valid choice in the 2024 election. We're not questioning that at this moment. There's something else that's more important. The details, the little details that tell us so much about the election, especially when we see what the super PAC is doing, which reflects on the candidate as well. To be fair and to be clear, we have covered events by the American Values 2024 Super PAC in the past. In fact, we've given more coverage to RFK Jr. than the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC since RFK Jr. declared himself as an independent. Institutions like ourselves have covered him more, almost exclusively, in fact, to be able to allow American voters to have the knowledge to be able to choose whom they think is the best. Also, let us take the moment to clarify that we did reach out to American Values 2024, both through a contact we had and also to their main email to try and get a response, any comment from them about this video. Now, we have stated to them, and we will maintain this, that any response we receive from American Values 2024, we will provide to the public verbatim and in full context so that you will be able to know exactly what they say. We don't play games with this. This is our policy for 18 years when dealing with any political campaign, any politician elected or running for an office. We always provide what they say verbatim and in full context so that you can make up your mind honestly and fairly. As of the recording of this video today, American Values 2024, the Super PAC for RFK Jr., have not responded to our request for comment at this time. All right, so what's the big deal? What is this all about? What is this all building up to? Well, here are the details that we think are important. It was reported earlier today from one of the individuals who was at the AmericaFest 2023 that the RFK Jr. Super PAC was one of the vendors at the event. That's fine. In addition, they were giving away items, and at some point during the event, their staff stepped away from their booth. Fine. They covered up their materials behind their booth on the ground. Again, that's fine. They did so with the American flag, as you can see pictured here. Now, I want to be very clear. They used the American flag as a tarp. And in doing so, they allowed the American flag to drag on the ground. Allowing the American flag to drag on the ground is a big deal. You may recall when U.S. women's soccer, Megan Rapinoe, took the United States flag, dropped it on the ground, actually threw it down on the ground, and stepped on the American flag, later to be saved by one of the other U.S. women's soccer team members, taking the flag and ripping it out off the ground so that it would not drag. It is an insult. It is absolutely disrespectful for the United States flag to touch the ground. It is a big deal. Now, let me give you some more context about this entire event. There were many conservatives who witnessed how the flag was being treated by American Values 2024 Super PAC in representing RFK Jr., that the American flag was on the ground. They saw this, they found it very disrespectful. One individual, Dreama King, found it so disrespectful that even though the staff were not there, she went into the booth, which is something that is usually very restricted, to try and pick up the American flag so that it would no longer be on the ground. It was at that moment that she was confronted by the staff members of the American Values 2024 Super PAC. They were very upset because she was in their space. Okay, we can understand that. But when she explained what she was doing there, they were still very confrontational to her, and they took the flag from her and said that they would take care of it, and wadded up the American flag as if it were some kind of cloth or a piece of paper. And that, of course, aggravated everyone. By the way, Dreama King is a former United States military service member, like many of the conservatives that were at the event, like many individuals across America, and found that kind of treatment for the American flag as being absolutely disrespectful. Now, when I say this is what Dreama did, I want to also clarify. We reached out to Dreama King. We spoke with her in detail about exactly what happened at the event. What did she do? How did the RFK Super PAC respond? What did their staff do, and what did they say? And thus, this is why we reached out to the Super PAC, asking them specific questions about this event. So we tried to be as close to the source as possible to present you this information. Now, it would be almost irrelevant, maybe to some people, that this is what happened. It would be insulting enough that the RFK Jr Super PAC allowed the flag to be on the ground while they are representing their candidate for the presidency of the United States, to imply that RFK Jr has less than absolute respect for the United States. But it gets a little bit worse. You see, after wadding up the American flag and having Dreama King having told them that they had to treat the flag more respectfully and to properly fold the flag, something that the staffers at that event did not really have a great interest in. They were more busy eating an orange at the time than trying to take care of the American flag and to show respect. They also didn't know how to fold the American flag, which, if you have the American flag and you're using it as a part of your display for a candidate running for the United States presidency, you would imagine they would have at least one individual at their booth at the convention trying to draw in conservative and independent voters. At least one of them would know how to fold the American flag properly. That wasn't the case. Dreama King then volunteered to instruct the staff on how to properly fold the American flag, and had to cajole those individuals, those staffers, to be able to do so. You may look at this and say, well, Mike, what's the big deal? The devil's in the details. A lot of little details here. You see, the Super PAC is supposed to represent the values and ideals of their candidate. That's how they present themselves. They represent the ideals and the policies and the direction, the soul of America. But that super PAC also hired individuals for an event to draw in voters that they normally would not get, telling them that they share their values, while they are actively displaying their lack of shared values, their lack of respect for the very country they want their candidate to be in charge of. The devil's in the details. The fact that no one knew how to take care of the American flag, not just in preventing it from draping the floor, but going beyond that and being able to fold the flag, or to even have a conversation with the very voters they are targeting, and doing so without having a confrontation or showing even greater disrespect both for those voters and the American flag. They didn't think it was a big deal. And very often what we have seen in campaigns is this is a top-down effort. It's very much like what we see at Harvard University, where Catherine Gray is more than happy to acknowledge calls for genocide on the campus and to recognize terrorism, and then is surprised that anti-Semitism is so huge on Harvard and how little free speech is allowed on Harvard. That comes from the top going down. We see this at Cornell University, where Professor Rickford is publicly going out and saying how they are exhilarated at the death of civilians at the hands of the terrorist organization Hamas, and then students at Cornell University acknowledge themselves as members of Hamas as they attempt to terrorize students. We can't be surprised. It's a top-down leadership. How the top acts and leads, the rest will follow. And that is very important for us to understand. We see this in New York City and Chicago, where the mayors will not denounce open borders, even as they are complaining about the consequence of those open borders, the infrastructure of our cities being destroyed by illegal aliens. We see that in Boston, as the Boston Mayor Wu is so desperate to virtue signal about DEI and inclusion that they are exclusive and in fact racist and segregationist in denying people the access to a Christmas party because of the color of their skin. This comes from the top and rolls down. And that may be what we are seeing here. It's part of the reason why I wanted to hear from the American Values Super PAC. It's why I would love to hear from RFK Jr. Is this what we are to expect? Is this what their leadership has led their followers to believe? That the little things, the things that matter to Americans, don't matter to them, that they don't value the American flag and all that it represents, that they're, like Megan Rapinoe, more than willing to allow the American flag to be dragged through the dirt because it's just a tarp. It has no inherent value to them, and therefore their policies are hollow as well. This is a significant question, we believe, for voters. When voters are thinking about who should be the next president of America, they must consider not just the promises that every campaign will make about how your life will be better under their leadership, but you have to look at what is their leadership resulting in. Now, you may say, well, this is a super PAC. It has nothing to do with RFK Jr. They're promoting his name in his campaign. It's an important question. We think it is. Perhaps you do too. So again, we are happy to hear from American Values 2024, the Super PAC. We are happy to hear what their answer is. Is this what they support? Is this the kind of leadership that we can expect from RFK Jr. going forward? Is this the kind of leadership that is created by the policies put forth by RFK Jr. and the Super PAC? I don't have the answer for you today, but I think it's a question we need to keep asking until we do get an answer. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Obey and believe.
Hell no! I'm happy to be here with you today. Understand the logic, and we see this in social media on a regular basis, and it's something that Newsweek decided not to tell you about. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has no idea what she's talking about.
You can meet a very, very stringent accuracy rate when it's important, when it matters, like in federal elections.